6 years ago, I started calisthenics and went from 100 pounds skinny and weak to 190 pounds jacked and strong, if I don't say so myself. And in this process, I've learned so many new things that beginners, intermediates, but also advanced people should stick to and live by in order to make more progress with calisthenics. So in today's video, I'm going to be sharing you everything I have learned along the way. And if you want to be able to build muscle and go from skinny to jacked with this new style of calisthenics training that I've developed for myself, go to the top link in the description. Everybody is already getting started. You're kind of late, but go over there right now and join the people who are actually building muscle the right way with calisthenics. Number one, focusing on weak exercises is more important than weak muscle groups. A lot of people, when they get into calisthenics, once they start getting to intermediate, because the work that gets you from beginner to intermediate is not going to be the same that gets you from intermediate to advanced. And what I see most of the time is that they start to focus on weak muscle groups, which is not really a bad way of thinking, but there's a more better and reliable option out there that you can actually start to implement, and that is weak exercises that you should focus on. So once you go from beginner to intermediate, this is now the time when you're actually going to start to improve when it comes to weak areas, right? You can visibly see them in the mirror, you can feel them, you can feel exercises that just feel weak. Maybe you have a spider physique where you have skinny arms, big chest, big back, or your shoulders are weak, or other exercises are just insanely strong compared to others. This is the time where you're going to be focusing on your weak areas to get from intermediate to advanced. This is what you should always do when you land in intermediate, and you can already land in intermediate within 6 months. I basically land people in intermediate training within 6 months from following my blueprint, and that's literally all I do. And then I also get people from intermediate to advanced with this style of calisthenics training. You want to be focusing on the weaknesses right now instead of your strong areas. So for example, my weaknesses has always been arms. So the first change I made, instead of adding a bunch of arm exercises in there, which are definitely effective, now I am doing that because I'm advanced. But the moment when I was still in intermediate, the first change I actually made is instead of doing the pull-ups every single day, I started switching it to a chin-up grip. Instead of doing weighted dips the normal way every single time, I started actually lowering the weight and going more slow and controlled. This is all something that you need to understand about calisthenics training if you want to actually build muscle faster and more reliably. You want to be changing the exercise entirely in order to gain more progress. That is all you got to do. And listen, you do that by changing the exercise a little bit, having a variation, and doing that week by week, and actually getting stronger in that week variation. So when it comes to push-ups, if your ring push-up, for example, or your diamond push-up, or your pike push-up is extremely weak next to your normal push-up or your decline push-ups or whatever, focus on those variations. This is something that I had to learn very, very late, but you have to focus on those variations, bro. Those weak variations are going to be getting you to a new level, and they're going to be having carryover to other exercises and to your very strong lifts, such as your normal push-ups or your dips, or whatever you're trying to get stronger at. They're going to be having carryover. So focus on your weakest variations and not on your strongest. Same thing when it comes to dips. If you have been doing dips for a long ass time, start going to the ring dip. Start doing Bulgarian ring dips. Start doing straight bar dips. Start doing dips with a deep range of motion. All of these things you can change to be able to basically get carryover from these weak variations to the main lift and get stronger in the main exercise. This is literally the best way to gain progress. Focus on your weak areas, get stronger in your strong areas and your weak areas. Second thing I had to learn, and that is that learning to train on isolation exercises with intensity gets you to advanced. Now listen, it's very hard to define an advanced lifter, right? I usually don't do that. I think it's kind of dangerous. Like, I don't want to fucking say to someone, you're intermediate, you're advanced, and I'm advanced and you're a beginner. There are different type of strength levels for each one of us, right? But when it comes to you being an intermediate right now, let's say you just know, like, okay, I'm definitely not a beginner, but I'm definitely not advanced. Then what I want you to do is start training calisthenics with isolation. This is something that I've also learned very, very late, but got me the most results quickly. In my Jacked by Calisthenics Blueprint program, I exactly teach how you need to be implementing isolation calisthenics into your routine to gain muscle. It is basically a full blueprint where I teach everything I teach on this channel in great detail with actionable steps that you need to undertake right now in order to get from skinny to jacked within 6 months. Top link is in the description. So a lot of people, they always want to stick to the compounds, which is very effective because calisthenics is compound filled, right? Calisthenics is basically a compound sport. You're going to be doing a bunch of compound exercises over and over and over again, and I understand you want to be sticking to those. But if you want to be elevating your progress to a new level, start implementing the isolations of calisthenics, such as your pelican curl, your bicep curl, tricep push-up, these skull crushers, maybe even tricep push-ups on the rings. Do everything that you can do. Elevate your style. Get from one level to another level with isolation. This also prevents injuries. How does it prevent injuries? By adding isolation exercises that of potentially very, very hard on your wrists or your tendons, because you're going to be strengthening those tendons and your wrist throughout this. This is exactly why I do it right now. It has carryover to my main lifts. And when I get stronger in isolation calisthenics, do you think that your wrists, your tendons, your elbows are going to be more durable when you're doing your compounds? That's exactly the reason why I promote isolation calisthenics. It's that easy. Just by actually isolating in calisthenics, doing isolation movements with a free range of motion gets your compound stronger, because you're making your wrist and all the little muscles more durable for certain exercises. One of the most effective ways to actually implement isolation into your routine is that, for example, if you notice that your lockout on the dips is weak, so you're always ending up just in that position where you can't really lock out and then you drop yourself, adding some tricep isolation such as tricep push-ups or maybe even some skull crushers, bodyweight skull crushers, could help you with that last bit of range of motion when it comes to the dip, which is going to be helpful in competitions if you want to do competitions, which is going to be helpful in doing more reps because you're now able to lock out instead of going down again, and you get more tricep gains out of it. And this is something that I've been doing myself right now. I always notice that, for example, on the pull-up, that top position, sometimes I wasn't getting my chin over the bar. So what did I start doing? I started doing ring bicep curls so that I can get that real squeeze position, right? And train my biceps to get that last bit of the pull-up. And now I'm able to do that fine. So this is all reasons why implementing isolation into your calisthenics routine is one of the most important things to do. And I've learned this very, very late, unfortunately, but now I've been doing it over and over again. And every single member in the Jacked by Calisthenics blueprint is doing the exact same thing, and they're experiencing a whole nother level of training. Trust me, it's gonna change your life. Then, third thing I had to learn, and this is something that I did correctly, you should have a high rep phase. So what do I mean with that? You should have a phase in your training journey, right, where you're gonna be doing high reps. And what do I mean with high reps? You're literally gonna be doing 50 reps a set. You gotta learn this shit. When I started calisthenics, I started with just high rep calisthenics training. And the reason why that was so effective for me is because I simply just loved it, so I could stay consistent on it very easily, right? I love doing sets of 50 push-ups or doing 30 pull-ups with dips and going all the way down to 1. I love doing that shit. I did it for 3-4 years straight, and that had carryover to my street lifting after I started street lifting. So the moment when I started street lifting and I started just lowering the reps completely, of course it was a whole new world for me. I wasn't used to it, but I was actually already quite good at it because I was used to insanely high reps and my body was used to a lot of volume. So the moment when I got into low volume street lifting, I could already put on like a bunch of plate on the way to dips because I mastered the dips with these high ass reps. And I could already do like 70 dips in a row, 100 push-ups in a row, 30 or 40 pull-ups. The moment I started to do weighted calisthenics and street lifting style calisthenics, I automatically could rep out 3 plates on the dips and rep out fucking 4 plates for a 1 rep max when I was 16, and doing 3 plates on the weighted pull-up for reps for sets. This is something that you're going to be experiencing as well. And this is exactly the moment when I gained the most size during weighted calisthenics. I'm going to be getting into it, but the reason why I first had to do a high rep phase for that is to learn the reps. You're going to be learning reps. You're going to be practicing the reps when you do high reps. So the moment when you have a high rep phase in your training, such as doing down workouts, very frequent throughout the week, right? And you can just implement it very easily. I'm going to get into that. Just adding in a simple down workout at the end of your session already puts you in a different type of state where you're going to be getting more volume throughout the total weekly volume, right? And you're going to be able to do so without sacrificing your recovery. So you're literally going to be getting more gains without sacrificing anything. It's just having a little bit of extra work at the end of your session. That's how you can implement it yourself if you're not doing this. But if you've ever had a phase in your life where you're doing high ass reps, good job, because this is when you're going to be learning calisthenics the most, is by just doing the basic exercises for a lot of times, a lot of reps, a lot of sets. This is when your body is going to be overloaded with these exercises to a certain amount, where the moment you put on some plates on your fucking back with push-ups, you can just rep them out like easily. And that's exactly why I promote this style of calisthenics. Also, it of course builds your joints stronger, so you're able to put more onto your body. You're able to handle more load. Back when I was doing this style of calisthenics training, right, I used to sometimes train with friends, and I wasn't burnt out after 2 hours of doing extensions and all that shit because my elbows, everything was just so strong by doing a bunch of reps every single fucking day. Nothing could actually break me down because I was used to that style of calisthenics. And now that I'm doing this new style of calisthenics that I'm promoting on this channel, I'm able to put on crazy amounts of mass because first off, my joints are very strong and able to handle a lot of load on the weighted calisthenics exercises and even weightlifting exercises. And I'm able to hold on to the bar for a long ass time. I'm able to basically go to failure, beyond failure, for a long ass time. I'm able to extend a set for an extra minute because my muscles and tendons and bones are so durable from these high rep training sessions. Next thing I learned, weighted calisthenics is gonna get you your most muscle gain. And this is gonna be the same for for every single athlete starting weighted calisthenics. The moment you start adding on some weight, and this doesn't have to be primarily street lifting, but just adding on some weight with calisthenics exercises, this is 100% going to be the moment where you're going to be gaining the most muscle. And I can guarantee you that, because weighted calisthenics is just the magic to be able to grow. Even if you're a weightlifter, when you're doing weighted calisthenics on the side, that weighted calisthenics is going to be having crazy carryover to, for example, your bench press, your deadlifts, your squats. If you have been doing a bunch of lunges or Bulgarian split squats, it's going to be having crazy carryover to all types of row variations that you're doing, pull downs. Listen, I could full stack the pull down when I was like 16, 17 years old in the gym, full stack, because I've just been doing weighted pull-ups. My back was already huge and fucking strong from weighted pull-ups, doing them shits over and over again, and I was able to fucking lat pull down the full rack with quite easy form, pretty good form, like easy reps. I could do about 6 to 8 reps with full stack. Of course, I was jerking a little bit, but I could do it. Why? Because it has carryover. On the other hand, when you're doing a bunch of weightlifting and thinking that your lat pull down is going to get your pull-up strong, it's not going to get your pull-up strong at all. The only thing that's going to get your pull-up strong is by doing your pull-ups. The only thing that's going to get your dips strong is by doing your dips. Same with push-ups. Same with certain type of ring pull-up variations or rows. It's going to get stronger when you focus on the exercise itself, not when you use a bunch of accessory exercises to gain muscle. But if you would like to have carryover to your weightlifting, weighted calisthenics is going to do so. And the moment I actually started gaining muscle with calisthenics is when I started upping the weight very, very quickly. And usually I like to promote on this channel getting more out of less weight, and I still absolutely believe in that. But the moment when I actually put on weight like a street lifter would, so adding one plate, adding like 2.5 kg every single week, and then eventually doing different styles of reps, so actually holding at the top, holding at the bottom, doing dead stop, doing fucking stretches, right? This is the moment where I gained super quick results. The only thing is, it's gonna stagnate pretty quickly if you're just adding weight. And this is exactly why I promote the concept getting more out of less weight. It's basically changing the variation up in such a way where your reps are gonna lower without needing to add more weight. And this is exactly, I have a full module on this in my Jacked by Calisthenics blueprint, and it's basically where I teach you how to progress without adding weight. And this is, in my opinion, the correct way to do progressive overload if you're at home, even in the gym, if you're doing difficult exercises, and if you want to build muscle more reliably, and if you want to never land in a plateau. So what is the concept of getting more out of less weight? And this is what I learned while I was only training at home for the past 4 months now. When I was doing my ring push-ups, I realized, okay, I have a 45-pound weight vest from Grenache. I have a couple of plates. I have a kettlebell. You put on the kettlebell on my weight belt, it most of the time hits the ground when I'm doing ring push-ups, so I can't really go heavy on these. What do? I put on my 45-pound weight vest, started progressing with it, but after a little while, I could do 10 reps quite easily from just doing normal push-ups. Then, this is when I really started learning the concept of getting more out of less weight. I had to humble myself. I had to say to myself, stop repping out quickly. Stop doing this stupid ass bullshit of like repping out quickly like you're an endurance athlete. You're not doing that no more. Now it's time to elevate towards bodybuilding style calisthenics, where I was lowering my reps, controlling my reps more, and then actually doing real quality per set. The moment when that started to happen, I started to get more out of less weight. I don't even need more weight now, and I know how to progress without adding more kgs. And this is exactly why I started this channel. The reason why I started this is because I said to myself, yo, fuck, man, I can just progress with anything I want. If I add a deep stretch on the bottom, if I add a pause at the top, if I add a very slow and controlled negative, if I add a big ass squeeze at the top, like bringing the rings together or doing whatever, I can get more out of less weight without adding weight, and I can actually progressively overload correctly. Every single week, I'm doing something different. The only thing is, I'm not changing the weight, I'm changing the exercise. I'm changing what I'm doing with the exercise. So I have a consistent rotation and variation that I just fucking rotate every single week. That is how I now progress. And that's exactly what you should do as well. Fifth thing I had to learn, that is, doing less is gonna get you more. In the calisthenics endurance world, and sometimes even street lifting, most of the time not, but for me it was, those were the style of calisthenics trainings where adding more is the way to go, right? Not with street lifting, I take that back, but with endurance calisthenics, my style was just adding more, doing more reps, doing more sets, doing more total volume. But the more I started doing, the less I actually started to see progress in the mirror. And I said to myself, what if I lower it and go harder per set? Because I learned that a long time ago. Intensity is very important. So the moment when I started to add more intensity, this is when I started to gain more muscle. So more intensity, lower sets, and actually going to extreme failure for almost 100% of my sets. Especially if you're naturally natural and doing calisthenics, you need this, bro. You need to go far. I know that on the high rep push-ups, you're not really going to be hitting failure. You might think you hit failure, but your lungs have hit failure. It's not the actual muscular failure that you would get on a 8 to 12 rep range weighted ring push-up. It's not the type of muscular failure that you would get doing a wide ring pull-up with 45 pounds going to failure with 8 to 12 reps. It's not the same kind of failure. It's basically vascular endurance failure, right? You're out of breath, and that's why you stop. You need to take a breather, and that's why you stop. But going to real failure, which is muscular failure, you need to lower the reps so that you do not get burnt out when it comes to how heavy you're breathing and how much vascular energy you got, but how hard the muscle is actually working. Because you might experience that you can still kind of do a lot of push-ups when you hit failure, but the truth is, you have already hit failure when it comes to how out of breath you are. But the muscular failure is not really quite there. That's why a lot of people who have that breath under control can keep going for thousands, right? And they can do 1,000 push-ups in a set. The reason why they are able to do that is because they know, okay, first I need to improve my breath, and then I'm going to increase the reps with it, and then I can actually hit muscular failure. But this is way too difficult, and it's also a little bit out of the hypertrophic rep range in order to build muscle the most reliable way. And that is in between the 5 and 30 rep range. If you're in a close proximity to failure within the 5 to 30 rep range, you're going to build muscle, bro. That's it. So if you stick to a solid 8 reps for weighted push-ups on the rings, and you do them slow and controlled, you deep stretch on the bottom to get more hypertrophic, you are going to get a huge chest. It has to be that way. Even if you're having shitty muscle building genetics, like I do, I don't have the greatest muscle building genetics. A lot of people tell me, oh, your genetics are fucking awesome. They're really not. When you see me when I was skinny, the only genetic strong point I had were my abs. They were always visible and pretty chiseled, right? But when it comes to muscle building, it took me 6 years to get to this, right? Please understand, like, it's not that special. A lot of people can do this shit. That is exactly why I've built this program where people can do it in 6 months. Because the people in the program are starting with the most effective work right away instead of having to do 4 or 5 years of learning. That's what I had to do. I didn't have nobody to basically guide me and say, yo, do this and do that and do this and do that. I just went freestyle at it. I didn't know what I was doing. Right now, I know what I'm doing. So people who are starting with the calisthenics blueprint right now, they are literally starting with the most effective work, which is why they're able to see so much progress within 6 months from now. So if you want to be one of those athletes and be part of the 1% of doing this style of calisthenics, click the top link in the description and it will not disappoint you. And also, watch this video right here, because in this video, I'm basically going to be teaching you how to get so jacked with calisthenics that it feels literally like cheating.